If you've been going around the good old internet looking for the right podcast to fulfill your New York Yankees needs, well, I'll be the first to deliver the good news to you. You have found it. Here on Yapping Yankees with me, your host, Mike Scudero, you and I will be discussing the latest news, takes, and talk throughout the entire Yankee universe. Oh, and there may be some ranting on my behalf. Yeah. Anyway, what do you say we get to it? Let's get to yapping! Well, hello there, my fellow Yankee fans, and welcome to episode 236 of the Yapping Yankees podcast. As always, I am your host, Mike Scudero, your friendly neighborhood Yankee yapper with the best yap in all the land. Here on September 22nd of the year 2024 with yet another extra large order of the Yappuccino for you. It is the second to last episode of the 2024 regular season. I cannot believe that, guys. I really can't. Unbelievable how fast time continues to go each and every year. We say it verbatim. Baseball has the longest regular season, but that does not stop it from going by just about as fast as any other regular season of any other sport. It is bonkers how fast it still goes. We find ourselves with 6 games remaining officially. I just fired up this microphone just as the Yankees and A's final game wrapped up in Oakland. I did make an executive decision to record today after the game ended just so we could have a nice, fresh, clean slate heading into the off day to start the final week of the season. So that was a nice little executive decision on my part. So no live reacting while I'm recording in real time to today's game. So I apologize to those who like to hear that. But nonetheless, that's the way we're doing things here today. Nice, fresh, clean slate to finish the weekend. Hope you guys had a good week, my friends, though. I had an interesting week. I'll explain. Because actually, shortly after I spoke to you last, well, very early Monday morning to start the week at around 5:30 in the morning, I would say. I got up and my throat was a little scratchy. So I took a sip of water from my night table, as I usually do whenever my throat's a little dry in the middle of the night. And that took care of it for the time being. Then I got up and had some breakfast before heading off to work. And it was still a little scratchy, so I, had some juice with my breakfast as always, and it helped a little bit again. But then progressively throughout the day on Monday, it just got worse and worse, and by the time Monday night came around, it was hurting pretty bad. Then I got up on Tuesday. Well, Monday night, it woke me up every single hour, the throat pain, which it usually does when my throat pain's bad. And then Tuesday was just terrible. On Tuesday, I could barely even speak. I think I said a combined 10 words all day at work. Literally could not speak almost entirely. And then ever since then, fortunately, I've been sort of on the mend here, so I don't really even know what it was that I had, but certainly interesting because on Tuesday night, I did have a fever. My temperature went up, which was really odd. I was just mainly praying to not have a repeat of January. Now, for those who don't recall that, if you recall, in January, I had an almost lethal case of the flu. It was terrible. I had about 104.5 fever for nearly 5 days straight back in January. I literally felt like I was going to die. And when I saw my temperature jump again this time, I guess I still have some PTSD from January because I was just praying, please don't be anything near the scales of January with the flu. Fortunately, it never got nearly that bad. Temperature went up to about 101.5 Tuesday night, and then by Wednesday I was already gone and it hadn't returned since. So, since Tuesday, fortunately, I've been on the mend, but just weird. I don't know if you could hear it in my voice on the recording right now, but at least inside of my head, I sound pretty nasally still. Been a mass exodus of mucus, not to gross you out, but yeah, it's been pretty bad. But otherwise, I'm feeling, for the most part, almost 100% again. I'm almost there, just some coughing, blowing the nose, things like that. But yeah, I still don't even really know what it is that I had because I never went to the doctor, but because it started to get on the mend a little bit before I could even think about going. Fortunately, that's a good outcome for it. But nonetheless, I still don't even really know what it is that I had. It was either, in my best guess, and I'm usually pretty good at predicting what I have. I literally called that I had the flu back in January before I even went to the doctor. I'm thinking it was either a nuclear level allergy attack, which would not be out of the ordinary for me because I have always had bad allergies, or it was just like a It's a pretty bad cold. Decent to bad in the cold department. That's my guess. But nonetheless, it is on its way out, literally, thankfully. So I'm very grateful about that because on Tuesday I was in pretty bad shape when my temperature had spiked like that at night. But nonetheless, so, just getting better from that. I didn't train all week, which, that stinks. I don't like not working out. I'm very active, so that stunk, but got to take care of the body, make sure it gets better. It's almost there, though, so it's been an interesting week, so that's really what I meant from that. But I do hope you had a more stable and positive week, like the Yankees did, because the Yankees certainly did have a very positive week. I mean, you had the offense blowing up a couple of times. You had the starting rotation having a phenomenal week. Probably the worst thing about the starting rotation this past week might have been today, with Luis Gil struggling decently. And 2 out of those 4 runs that were on his final line for today came when he came out of the game and Hamilton took over for him in that inning, and both of those runs that were his responsibility happened to score. That might have been the worst example, outside of Clark Schmidt not looking too hot in the first inning, or the majority of the first 3 innings of his outing in Seattle. But other than that, starting rotation had a phenomenal week, and that Clark Schmidt start wasn't even really terrible, just wasn't one of his better ones. And the bullpen's been very nice, and the Yankees just finished off a sweep in Oakland for the last time that they'll ever be playing at that dump. Because as we know, as many of us baseball fans know, and I do feel bad for the Oakland A's fans, if I happen to have any of you Oakland A's fans out there for whatever reason listening to this Yankees podcast, I will tell you that I do join you in union with just hating your owner. But yeah, we all know the A's are going to be moving to Las Vegas in the coming years, and these last few and the next couple of upcoming days here are the last bunch of games that the A's are playing at the Oakland Coliseum before they spend the next 2 or 3 years or so at a minor league park while their new baseball stadium in Las Vegas is under construction and being built. So this is the Yankees' last time this weekend, or rather this was the last time this weekend since the series is officially over as of now, that the Yankees will ever see that dump. And I'm glad to see it go because it is a dump. Just not a stadium for baseball at all. It has not been for a very long time. Just never was a fan of that stadium. So many things about it that are so out of date and just dumpy, honestly. Just not a fan of it, never have been. And the Yankees have had a very tough time there in recent years. Since 2017, including the year 2017, up until this weekend here, the Yankees were 7-14 there. I'm not sure how many of you guys knew that. I happened to just look that up myself yesterday. And throughout a lot of that time, the A's were fielding some very bad teams, so there really was just no solid explanation for that kind of gameplay there, outside of it just probably being one of those stadiums that the Yankees hated to play at. And I hated looking at it, so honestly, all those things combined, I'm glad to see that stadium go. I feel very bad for the Oakland A's fans that they're having to say goodbye to their team. It's a really crappy situation that didn't have to be a thing if not for the piece of crap owner. But a discussion for another day. But the Yankees did leave that stadium out there with something to remember them by. A nice good old sweep to finish their time over there.
Give me a hell yeah!
Hell yeah, Stone Cold. And now, we've been talking about the division for weeks on end, even months, because the Yankees and Orioles have been so close to each other for that amount of time. Now we sit here with the Orioles collapse continuing through this past week, losing yet another series this weekend. They lost both their series this past week once again, firstly to the Giants and now to the Tigers this weekend, who now are tied for the 3rd wild card in the American League. The American League wild card race is turning out to be absolutely bonkers. I've been watching so much baseball all throughout the league like I usually do, but even more so this past week because you have the Twins and the Red Sox playing in the second game of their doubleheader right now. The Red Sox just retook the lead because the Red Sox won the first game by a big margin. I think they won, 8-1? Yeah, 8-1. And the Twins are just winning 2-0 up until just now, and the Red Sox took the lead for the first time tonight in Game 2. But if the Twins were to win this second game, listen to this, there would be a 3-team tie for the second wild card. 3-team tie between the Tigers, the Royals, who have just been free fall. Royals just got absolutely spanked by the Giants this weekend. They have now lost 7 games in a row. Just not the time to be doing that. If the Twins won, there'd be a 3-team tie between them, the Royals, and the Tigers, with the Orioles having the first wild card. That's insane. And it could have been even closer if the Mariners didn't blow a 5-1 lead late to the Rangers, who aren't even going to the playoffs. Horrible collapse by the Mariners today. So the playoff picture overall is just unreal. Even in the National League, I have the Mets and the Phillies on right now. They're just getting started at the time I'm recording right now. And if the Mets were to lose tonight, the Braves already won earlier against the Marlins, got out of a bunch of huge jams pitching-wise, which was crazy against the Marlins, but they just won earlier. If the Mets lose, then, because the Diamondbacks blew a huge lead to the Brewers today, I'm telling you, a lot of crazy action going on in baseball today. If the Mets lost, you'd have the Padres up in the first wild card, the Diamondbacks 3 games behind them, but with the Diamondbacks, Mets, and Braves right now, let's say the Mets lose this game. It'll be the Diamondbacks, then a game behind them, the Mets, then a game behind the Mets, the Braves. And this week, the Mets and Braves, for their next series each, are versing each other for 3 games in Atlanta. That'll probably most likely decide who's going to go to the playoffs and who won't. Just crazy, crazy action going on here. But the Yankees are included in that. But the situation is a bit more comfortable when it comes to the Yankees, because fortunately for them, as of this win against Oakland, since they have their foot on the gas, which I've only been asking for the last 80 or 90 games, when the Yankees have been playing mid-baseball, and now they've just won their 5th series in a row as of yesterday, when they officially won the series against the A's. Now they just swept them. Now they have 5 series wins in a row, playing their best baseball that they've played probably since the first 2 months of the year, with the amount of wins they've been racking up once again. And because of this win today, because they are finally maintaining that aggression I've been craving, the magic number to win the American League East is now down to just 1. What that means is that they are now 6 games up, which is insane to think about, because just a couple of weeks ago, literally 2 weeks ago, there was still just a half a game dividing the Yankees and the Orioles. It has been such a remarkable collapse for the Orioles. The difference is the Yankees and the Orioles have been playing mid-baseball, both of them, for months now. Now the difference is just the last couple of weeks, the Yankees have trended upwards and the Orioles have only continued to trend downwards. And now it's made such a big difference that what was a half a game apart 2 weeks ago is now a 6-game discrepancy. Just 2 weeks apart from each other. They're 6 games up now, the Yankees are, with 6 to play, which means they only have to win 1 game within the next 6, which is going to happen. Or the Orioles have to lose 1 game of the next 6. That's it. And the Yankees can take care of both of those scenarios because obviously, as we've been saying, with the anticipation leading up to this series, now it doesn't appear to be as big of a deal as we all thought it would be, which is great. I'd rather it that way. But the Yankees can take care of both of those things because the next series is against the Orioles head-to-head at Yankee Stadium starting on Tuesday for a 3-game set. And the Yankees can take care of all of it by just beating them on Tuesday, and then the AL East is a wrap. It's done. So, to say the least, it's looking good. It's looking great, as a matter of fact, one might say. So, magic number down to 1, leaving Oakland, a stadium that has been a house of horrors for them for years, with a sweep to remember them by, and officially having wrapped up a 5-1 West Coast trip heading into tomorrow's off day. The Yankees usually also struggle, for the most part, with West Coast trips. They were dealt a rare late one in the schedule this year, and they handled it gracefully. Now, as I said, they find themselves 6 up in the division. Yes, absolutely. Round of applause. Times are good, man. They are good. 92-64. And that actually does not even have to end there. They can secure the AL East, but then they could also work on securing the best record in the American League, which they've been neck and neck with the Guardians with all year long. And the Guardians lost again today to the Cardinals. So that's good news for the Yankees as well. The Guardians are 2.5 games worse than the Yankees right now with a 90-67 record to the Yankees' 92-64. So If they secure that over the Guardians, then the Yankees will guarantee that regardless of how far they go into the playoffs before the World Series, they will have home field advantage on the American League side all the way through to the World Series. Now, if they want home field advantage all throughout, even the World Series, if they were to make it that far, well, then they're going to have to worry about the Phillies and the Dodgers, because they are up next on the totem pole for best records around all of Major League Baseball. Now, the Rockies today did have the Dodgers on the ropes in the ninth inning, winning 5-4, but they blew the game. No shocker there. If the Dodgers had lost, then they would have the same exact record as the Yankees right now, and they'd be tied with them. That is not the case, unfortunately. So since they did come back and win and have their record at 93-63 instead of 92-64 like the Yankees, they are a game better than the Yankees. The Phillies right now, it'll depend on what they do against the Mets. They just took a 1-0 lead in the first inning. If they do beat the Mets today, then they'll be at 93-63 like the Dodgers and just one game better than the Yankees heading into the final week of the season here with 6 to play. If they lose, then they'll be tied with the Yankees with a 92-64 record and will be one game worse alongside the Yankees behind the current Major League's best, Dodgers. So that's the picture. And if they pass them, then the Yankees will guarantee themselves home field advantage throughout the entire postseason, including the World Series. But one step at a time, we'll worry about the Guardians first. So the Yankees already have the 2.5 game advantage over them with 6 left to play, so the odds are good. It's theirs to lose, but the Yankees are on the cusp of also securing home field advantage on the American League side all throughout the playoffs leading up to the World Series. So that's probably the next thing to keep your eyes out for, because it's all but a lock for the American League East at this point for the Yankees, which is awesome. Either way, of course, whether they finish above or below the Guardians, the Yankees will have that bye week next week, the week after this coming one, for the wild card round. And on the American League side, it'll be Houston, because they are the worst of the division winners and the third best team in the American League, facing God knows who, because we have no idea who the third wild card is going to be right now with how close things are in the American League wild card picture. And then whoever's 1 and 2, who we also don't know who's going to be facing the number 1 Orioles. The Orioles will likely be the number 1. We don't know who their number 2 is going to be because of how close things are with the Tigers, Royals, and the Twins. It could be any one of those 3. So it's absolutely insane. Now the Red Sox are winning 9-2. They were just winning 3-2 like a couple of minutes ago. What the hell happened? So it looks like the Twins are going to lose this game, so they're going to get swept in today's doubleheader. So what it looks like it's going to be after this game is done is the Twins are going to be a game behind the Tide, Tigers, and Royals. How about that American League Central this year, huh? The Central is usually the joke of the American League as far as the divisions, but now, this year, it's probably the best of all the divisions because, I mean, they're very behind the Guardians, no doubt there, but you got 3 teams in the middle all fighting for a wild card spot. That's exciting. And then in the West, you have the Astros, and then Seattle's 5 behind them, with Texas and Oakland and LA being way behind, so not much excitement there. And unfortunately, the American League East even more so, because the O's are 6 behind the Yankees for first place, and the Rays, Red Sox, and Blue Jays are all even further behind both of them. So the East and the West, a couple of duds this year, except for the Orioles and Yankees race up until a couple of weeks ago. And the Central has been the most exciting, particularly in the middle of that division with 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. So a different shift in the American League divisions this year. Just an overview of everything. Just thought I'd run through that with the playoffs so close entering the last week here. But yeah, that's the picture, guys. As far as the Yankees are concerned, first thing right now, magic number for the East down to 1. And then after that, you look to secure home field advantage all throughout the playoffs up until the World Series by finishing better than Cleveland. And then from there, I guess if you have World Series aspirations, which I would hope we all do, regardless of the occasional inconsistencies about the Yankees that worry us here and there, the next thing you would look to is finishing better than the Phillies and or Dodgers for a potential home field advantage even in such a scenario as the World Series. That's where we're at. Let's focus on just crushing the Orioles and staying aggressive the next 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with the off day tomorrow. Hopefully the Yankees have a lovely flight home, finishing off this wonderful West Coast trip the way they did. But yeah, this past week, guys, really good. 5-1 West Coast trip, like I said. Number of occasions where the offense absolutely exploded. You had it on Tuesday when they scored 11 in Seattle. Then you had it yesterday when they scored 10 in Game 2 in Oakland. They even scored 7 today. A couple of guys slumping here and there, but a lot of other guys picking up the slack. A lot of good to take away from it. Starting rotation, except for Clark Schmidt, looking a little rough in the start of Thursday's game in Seattle, and Luis Gil struggling in a couple of innings today. Starting rotation otherwise, phenomenal. And the bullpen has been very nice. Very nice. Back on Tuesday against the Mariners, you had Luis Gil starting, so he started twice this past week. Today and on Tuesday, he had 5 innings of 1-run ball, still 3 walks, so the walk's a little bit of an issue still, but nonetheless kept the Yankees in the game even if he allowed quite a bit of traffic, only allowed 1 run to cross, so still a nice outing overall. Then on Wednesday, you had an absolute freaking gem by Nestor once again. He did allow 3 walks himself, but 6 innings of shutout baseball, 6 strikeouts. Overall, really nice outing by him. Need him back on track again as the playoffs get closer, so it's important because he had that really bad start back on September 1st, and then on the 7th, he only went 4 1/3, but on the 12th, the start before the last, he went 5 innings, only allowing 1 run, and now 6 shutout here, so hopefully he's trending back upwards again at the right time here, and you hope his arm isn't getting tired once again, but a nice outing by Nestor there. And then on Thursday, that was when Clark had struggled a little bit, mainly in the first 3 innings, but for the most part in the first when he allowed all 3 of his runs. But only 1 was earned because they were having some trouble in the outfield. Dominguez straight up dropped that ball, and it was just an ugly inning all around, especially in that first. Otherwise, he kept them off the scoreboard entirely, only had that 1 earned run. But he wasn't quite as sharp as he usually is. Did still have 7 strikeouts in just 5 innings, but still allowed those 3 walks, allowed 6 hits. So it was just, especially in that first inning, just a little bit off, but not even a bad outing. Not bad. Then on Friday, I had the absolute gem. You want to talk about a gem? Screw what I said about Nestor with the gem before. This is a gem. Garrett Cole had gone 9 innings in the first game in Oakland. 9 innings, only allowing 1 walk, 2 hits, and 1 run the entire outing just in that 4th inning. And he struck out 7 guys. Brought his ERA back down into the 360s. Not bad at all. Got his 7th win of the year. And it was one of those really, really rare instances where a guy went a full 9 innings and was not credited with the complete game because the game had gone into extras. And he was still at 99 pitches after finishing the 9th. At one point, especially when the Yankees had gotten to 4 runs in the top of the 10th, I was like, screw it, let Garrett go out for the 10th and let him be the first starter to do that in God knows how long. But obviously probably not the smartest of ideas health-wise with his arm with the playoffs right around the corner, but I was just playing around. But he looked absolutely fantastic. He still thankfully did earn the victory despite the game still being tied after he was done. But the Yankees scoring in the top of the 10th still allowed him to be credited with the win, just not the complete game. Again, does not happen very often at all in baseball, so that was interesting. But he pitched wonderfully. And then yesterday, you had Rodon pitching a very nice game himself. 6 shutout innings himself with just 1 walk. He allowed 5 hits, struck out 4. Got his ERA back under 4 for the first time since June. Since his downturn when he was pitching like crap for about a month to a month and a half. And then was kind of hit and miss. And now lately, he's been a bit better. He did earn his 16th win of the season. Gil earned his, despite being a little shaky today, earned his 15th. So the Yankees have 2 starters now in 2024 who earned 15 or more wins. So that's pretty nice, except Luis Gil has a 3.27 ERA and Rodon is a tad under 4 with a 3.98. That prediction for Rodon that I made preseason, well, he has exceeded the wins total. I said he would definitely get over 15 wins, but I expected a 3.15 ERA or lower to accompany it. That obviously did not come true, only because of that, I would say, month to a month and a half putrid stretch that he had straight. So that's unfortunate, but nonetheless, if you look outside of that time, which, you can't fully take it away because it did happen, but if you do look away from that, otherwise, Rodon, for the most part, has had a very good bounce-back season with the Yankees here. But that time period, unfortunately, cannot be erased. It is a part of that ERA. But pitched wonderfully yesterday, and Luis Gil was today. He was He did struggle. He walked 3 guys again, allowed 5 hits and 5 1/3, and 2 of those runs that he gave up was given up by Hamilton, but they were his responsibility. So final line did have 4 runs on it, which was the most runs allowed on any pitcher line this past week, which tells you it wasn't a bad week for the starting rotation at all. So you had that. You had the bullpen. I think the pen gave up a combined less than maybe 5 runs this past week. Altogether, it was really good. You had Stroman give up that 1 run in 3 innings of relief on Tuesday when they had won 11-2. That earned him his first save, by the way, which is pretty funny. And then on Wednesday, you had the Yankee bullpen only give up a run because of Clay Holmes, which is just shocking, I tell you. So another run given up by him in a humongous spot because it was 1-0. He was brought into the 8th inning and blew yet another game, his 13th. So it wasn't in the 9th inning, but it was still yet another blown appearance. 13. We are over a dozen, folks. Fortunately, it didn't lead to a loss because the offense put one up on the board in the 10th inning and didn't allow the Mariners to do the same in the bottom half. But Clay Holmes being wonderful once again. Thinking of just saying the bullpen stats just without him because they vastly improve. And on Thursday, they didn't allow anything. Friday was only off of a ghost runner that scored off of Weaver in the 10th. I don't count that. Yesterday, they allowed nothing. And today, the only runs that scored with the bullpen in was off of Hamilton. But both of those runs, again, were Heal's responsibility. So line-wise and numbers-wise, the bullpen actually only allowed 2 runs this past week. If you exclude the ghost runner that scored off of Weaver. If you want to include that, then that's 3, but I don't include that. So only 2 runs scored off of them this entire week. And they've been so much better of late. Again, they have that nice unit back that they've developed. I love it. And I hope it continues down that path, man. It's been really good. But the offense, again, had their very good days as well with those couple of explosions, getting it done in huge moments when it mattered. Of course, sometimes they don't get it done, but you can't come through every single time. But they had themselves, on an overall basis, a very nice week. And if you want to talk about everybody on an individual basis, why don't we lead off with leadoff Glaber? And, well, I think this clip will do well from today in describing how leadoff Glaber has been.
Against Joey Estes, swings at the first pitch and lofts it to center field. Going back Leday on the track at the wall. See ya! A home run for Torres. Dead center. And it's 4-2 Yanks.
That weird sounding audio is in courtesy of the Yes Network. But, yeah, that has been the story with Glaber lately, folks. It has been crazy how good leadoff Glaber continues to be at the plate. And I say at the plate because I still stand by what I always say about Glaber on the bases, in the field, and with his occasional lack of focus play. But even if you have been hard on him in the past, like I said, if you're going to be really hard on someone, you have to give it back the other way equally if things start to change. And I'm a man of my word with that. And I am very fair and balanced as much as possible. And I like to pride myself on that. And because of that, I do have to continue to give Gleyber Torres all the credit in the world for finding it with the bat the way that he has in the leadoff spot since the Yankees moved him back there. Like I said, they tried it very briefly earlier on in the year. Did not get much out of it at all, but then once they tried it once again in the last month or two, it has been great. In a position, a slot in the lineup where the Yankees have struggled to find production in for most of the season. Since they tried Gleyber there once again here, it has been fantastic. So I got to give Gleyber all the credit in the world for continuing to just hit out of his mind there. That home run clip you just heard from today was his 15th home run of the year. He's 11 for his last 34, which is good for a 324 average. And in that time, his OPS is over 860, which is crazy. He's 21 for his last 68, which is good for a 309 average. And even in his last 30 games, he has a 320 average with an OPS over 830, which is, it's great. Glaber's doing a fantastic job, so that's the latest on him. Then you have Juan Soto, who did have a scare earlier in the week when he had collided into that right field wall with his knee, but other than having much of the game off to start the Oakland series, only to get a huge hit late in the game in extra innings, which was awesome, Soto has been looking a bit better of late. This past week, last 7 games, he's 7 for his last 21, which is good for a 333 average. OPS well over 1,000 once again. On-base percentage of 500, taking his walks again, getting his hits. So In the last week or so, he's started to heat up, getting some big hits in big spots, and that is very welcomed because the Yankees obviously need Soto, and it is a huge relief that he's okay after that scare with his knee. We'll talk about that a little bit more in Yankees news later on, but nonetheless, good to see that improvement from Soto this past week, and I hope that continues. He himself sits at 40 home runs with 104 RBIs, amongst the best seasons he has ever had. It's in the discussion for amongst the highest of batting averages he's had. He already has more home runs this year than he's ever had within any other one season. And the most RBIs he's had in a year was back in 2019 when he had 110. He's at 104 right now. Might finish around that, but nonetheless still amongst the best seasons he's ever had. In some ways, even the best. So just hope to continue to see that from Soto. Judge, well, like his assistant Juan Soto, he continues on a good pace as well. He's 8 for his last 21, good for a 381 average. OPS in his last 7 games of almost 1,500 again, so it's just fantastic. In his last 15, he's got a 327 average. He's just been fantastic. This past week, he hit 3 home runs once again. Home runs numbers 53, 54, and 55. He's just something. I don't know. Something that no one word in any language can describe. He's sitting with a 323 average, 55 home runs, 138 RBIs. He's definitely going to eclipse that 140 total. OPS of over 1150. It's insane. Absolutely insane. And as of today, since he had multiple walks, he has also surpassed his previous career high in walks for a season. The most he had before this was 127 in 2017. As of finish of play today, he has 129 walks, and there's still 6 games left to play, and he's definitely going to be walked at least one more time. So he's going to get 130 or more walks this year. So, like I said, if you just compare that to 17, with him not quite reaching the home run total that he hit in 22, he has right now 2 more walks than in 2017 and 18 more walks currently than his 2022 total, which was 111. Felt like he was walked a bunch in 22, but a lot more this year, if you could believe that. So by the time he's done, he's probably going to have about 133 or so walks, if I had to predict. So you give, as many walks back as the total that he had in 22. Let's say you give him 22's walk total for this year. Give him all those walks back and turn them into at-bats where they actually pitch to him. I mean, you could maybe get a couple more home runs in there that make him chase 60 once again. I'm not attributing the walks solely to that. I mean, he did go through his homerless streaks in those first 3 weeks or so, and he struggled at the start of the season, and then recently that 16-game stretch he went on, a career-high home run drought without home runs. Those definitely attributed as well. But nonetheless, talk about having that many more walks than even 2022. It's absolutely insane. And this year, honestly, I'll take this season because other than the home runs, which is only going to come in maybe about, ultimately, I don't know, maybe 5 home runs less than 2022, every single other statistic just about is better. Average, RBIs, OPS, on-base percentage, slugging, the whole deal. It's all even better. It's insane than 2022. All of it is better. Insanity. So, 2024, Judge, even if you don't hit 60 home runs, which is looking like you're obviously not, I am completely cool with that because otherwise it has still been yet another season for the ages, to say the least, as the captain still continues to look wonderful out there. Austin Wells, my catcher. Now, I'll say he's actually been struggling a little bit of late. He did have a big RBI double today, which was nice. Timely hits have been falling occasionally for him, but he has been struggling of late, I have to be honest. He's 2 for his last 26, which is really bad. He's 8 for his last 52. Like I said, the timely hits do help it with him sometimes. I mean, I'm okay with the season that Austin Wells has had because he's caught more games up here than he ever has. I mean, he's still brand new, and usually the minor league season isn't the length of a major league season, and he has played the vast majority of the season, especially as of a few months ago when Trevino got hurt. He was catching almost every single day, and even now he's getting the majority of the playing time, even with Trevi back, as he should be. So he's caught probably a lot more than he is mostly used to. So it's definitely a possibility that he could be getting tired. But nonetheless, especially for a catcher, I'm still fine with this season. His batting average is around 240, 13 homers, 54 RBIs, OPS in the mid-700s. I'm okay with that, man, especially when you talk about the couple of things that he did to improve defensively. That was a big thing for me. And he has shown some growth defensively as well. So just, Austin, all I ask is just finish out the last week here strong and have yourself a good-ass October. That's really all I say. But he has been struggling of late. I have to be honest with that. Stanton. Interesting case, because before the last couple of days in Oakland, he had still been having a pretty rough time, but he's been heating up the last couple of days, which is just in time, because we all know what Stanton turns into in October. He turns into straight up super freaking man. So it is happening just in time, heading into the final week of the season here. He's 7 for his last 22, which is good for a 318 average in his last 7 games. On-base percentage of around 450, slugging of about 550, OPS around 1,000 because of that. He had a mammoth home run yesterday, mammoth shot for his 26th, and he had that big RBI double in today's game that drove in the 6th run of the game. 68th run on his season, which is impressive considering the amount of time he missed. But nonetheless, he's been heating up of late, which is something that I like to see, especially with the playoffs around the corner, because, again, we all know what Stanton turns into in the playoffs, and we can only hope that we get that version of Stanton this year, because the Yankees lineup is, I would say, more well-equipped for the playoffs than they have been in quite a bunch of years for this year. And a Superman playoff Stanton would only help that. Then you have Jazz Chisholm. He did have a hit and an RBI in today's game, so that is good. But I do have to be honest, Jazz himself is also struggling a bit as well. He is himself in his last 7. He's 4 for his last 25. He is 9 for his last 54. So it has taken a bit of a turn for the worse in the last week and a half or so, unfortunately for him. But he's still been a little bit better at third base with the defense, which is definitely welcome because we have seen some of the growing pains down there in the last bunch of weeks. But overall, he's still having himself a very nice season on the whole. And I don't know, you just got to work out and get out of the slump, especially with the playoffs around the corner. You hope to see him turn things around for the postseason, but struggling a bit of late. Dominguez, I am very happy to say, because he has definitely made some strides at the plate the last few days. Definitely some hiccups in the field, defensively, especially in Seattle when he had dropped that ball and he had a tough time out there. Although the outfielders overall in center and left that day had a rough day because of the sun. But he's had a couple of scuffles with defense, but that ought to come with more time and experience and growth out there, more reps out there in left field and center field, depending on where they put him on a given night. But last couple of days, especially with the series in Oakland, he's made some strides at the plate. He's taken a couple more walks. He's gotten some big hits. Had that huge mammoth home run today for his second shot in 2024. He's 6 for his last 23, which is good for an average just above 260, which is better than it was before. Much better. So his numbers have definitely gone up a bit, and he's shown some growth. And that only ought to continue the more reps he gets. He's just 21 years old. Got to give the kid some time to continue to develop and get those major league reps, baby. But he has definitely shown some growth in the last handful of days. So let's continue to see that going into the final week here. Verdugo, I just hope to see continued less and less playing time from him, not only just for the sake of Dominguez getting more reps like he deserves, but because he has just been awful. He's 3 for his last 23, which is a 130 batting average in his last 7. He's 12 for his last 51, which is good for an average in the low 200s and the 230s. His on-base percentage is below 300 in that time. His slug is under 300, which is he just doesn't have any slug whatsoever, not having any power, not even reaching base all that often anymore. I mean, we all know that his overall numbers for the better part of the last 90 to 100 games have been absolutely terrible. He did have a couple of spurts there where he was a bit better, but now it's just back to being the Verdugo that we've seen for the vast majority of the season, quite frankly, and I hope it just leads to less and less reps. You obviously get a defensive advantage with him being out there, but with the bat, there's just nothing to be desired anymore. Speaking of nothing to unfortunately be desired with the bat anymore, you have Anthony Rizzo down at first base. I will say this. Rizzo has been fantastic once again with the glove, which is big. Because The Yankees have had some difficulty there defensively, obviously, but along with a complete lack of production for the most part at first base this year, you also had Rizzo looking oddly bad with the glove before he got hurt earlier in the year in the first half, which was never a problem with Rizzo, which is why it was so baffling. His offense had gone down post-concussion last year, but not so much his defense. His defense was still what we all knew it to be, which was fantastic, platinum glove worthy. But then to start this year, even his defense dissipated. Well, that has not been the case since he has returned from the injured list here in the second half in September, which is awesome. That's what you want to see. You want to see at least Rizzo's defense return. It's so big, and it's primarily what he's known for, despite having had a great bat throughout the vast majority of his career too, but it's really the defense especially that got people talking about Rizzo, and we've seen that return. So I'll give him credit for that. But with the bat, man, it's still been ugly. In his last 15 games, he's 9 for 53, which is a 170 average. He has no pop. He has not hit a home run since before he hit the IL earlier in the year. So he's still not gone deep since he's returned. And doesn't really have many extra base hits to begin with. And, I mean, the hits overall really aren't even there. He's not walking all that much. 214 average in his last 7 games with a 267 on base, 286 slug. There's nothing there for Rizzo anymore, man. You could just tell. The offense has really just started to fade out from it. It's sad. It's the last thing I wanted to happen to Rizzo. I love Rizzo. I did give him a shot, and I did want to see if he had anything left here in the home stretch, but going into the final week here, I think we have our answer, unfortunately, about what Rizzo is offensively for the remainder of 2024. Maybe the guy will wake up and surprise us in the last week here or in October. I would love nothing more than for that to happen. I really would. It's just doubtful, though. I hope he finds something in October in the clutch moment under the bright lights. That would be a godsend. It would be. But I wouldn't hold your breath. I'm not completely discounting it. It could happen. But especially what we've seen from him since coming off the injured list, vastly improved defense to the Rizzo we always knew down at first base with the glove, yes, but also a lot of continuation of what we saw before the injured list at the plate, and that's just little to no offense at all. So, it's just sad, but that's the deal with Rizzo now, I guess. You have Volpe at shortstop. I mean, listen, the last few days in Oakland, the last couple of days, he has definitely shown a surge. I mean, he went deep yesterday, nice shot to left center field, and because of this weekend in Oakland in the last 7, it's boosted his numbers to being 7 for his last 27, good for a 259 average. And the pop boosted his slugging a little bit with the shot yesterday. But outside of the Oakland series, I'll say, listen, he had a good weekend. I'll give him that. But otherwise, I mean, Volpe's still just not really doing too much that impresses me a ton as of this past week outside of that. Had a good weekend in Oakland, I'll say that. But otherwise, he's just kind of there. I don't know. So, hope to see more out of him, like I said, either in this last week or in October. I did say last week, and I stick by it now, that I think the best thing that could happen for Volpe at this point to redeem his year on an overall basis is a crazy October. I think it would help him greatly, and I think it's going to be an awesome experience for him, too, because he was just called up last year. Yankees didn't make the playoffs last year. This will be his first October experience, and I think especially because it is his first, he has a great opportunity lying in front of him to make an unbelievable first October impression, which I think would help him in an unbelievable way, both with his team and with the fans as well. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what Anthony does in October pretty much because, I mean, his season is what it is more or less at this point. I would say on an overall basis, except for the first month and for those couple of weeks after the All-Star break when he went on that little tear, I would say that Volpe's season on the whole, on an overall level, was pretty disappointing. Pretty disappointing. Except for a couple of botches defensively in huge spots. I would say defensively he was still, for the most part, really solid, so I'll give him that, but at the plate, underwhelming. Very underwhelming. I feel like I sounded nasally there. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed, but my voice is definitely not at full capacity yet since I was feeling crappy earlier in the week, but I'm doing my best here. But nonetheless, I mean, that's really all there is to discuss as far as the lineup on an overall basis. You do have your guys on the bench for the most part. Jose Trevino continues to do nothing offensively, does nothing with throwing guys out on the bases whatsoever, has no chance at that at all. You're basically relying on him for some defense and a lot of framing. That's basically where that's at. You have Birdie, who did start at third base yesterday and looked good. I'll give him that. So that's good to see from Birdie from a utility perspective. And he could definitely play a nice third base as well, so you see him every now and again. You got Waldo, who I would continue to like to see get some reps out there. He's actually played some surprisingly very good defense down at first base, which is a welcome sign, because he tends to come through in some big spots at the plate here and there. And then you got backup outfielder Trent Grisham, of course, and Trent will put up a good at-bat here and there. He will. He definitely will. He's got a good eye, and he can come through in some big spots, as we've seen. He definitely played a part in the extra inning game on Friday as well. But otherwise, you don't really expect much else at him. He's got great defense, great defender, and he'll come through in some big spots, and he's got a good eye at the plate. So despite him doing some things that'll piss you off sometimes, I definitely think he's a good backup to have around. I've said that many times before, but that's basically the overall offensive overview. I mean, lots of good, some bad, but, not everybody's going to be clicking at the same time, hardly ever, so that's completely normal. But lots of good to take away from this past week, guys, lots of good. And I expect that to continue in the final 6 games here, because you got an Orioles team that has really scuffled for weeks now and has just really been in a downward spiral, to be nice about it. And it has been ugly for them. And they're coming into Yankee Stadium trying to just hold on to a wild card spot at this point, I would think it's safe to say. They lose even once, and there's no hope at the division, so they just got to fight for as good of a wild card spot as they possibly could. And they're in a good position right now, being 4 up into the first one. But nonetheless, they just they're having a really rough go at it, and they've been losing to some bad teams. So the Yankees have been victims of doing that themselves. I mean, we've gone on plenty of tirades about that, even on this show, let alone outside of it. So the Yankees have been victims of that as well, but the difference is that the Orioles are doing it when it matters the absolute most here at the end in the home stretch of things. The Yankees were doing it when they could have afforded to and still just really put their best foot forward here at the end, but the Orioles are doing it in crunch time. It's not the time to be doing it. I mean, they could have done it against the Mariners, who were a few games over 500. They are a winning team, but not within, the best, the top 5 in the American League, at least. And they could have done it against the A's, especially because the A's have had their tendency to play very well sometimes, and plus the Yankees have had a very tough time at the Oakland Coliseum within the past bunch of years, as we know, but they did not play like that this weekend, which is huge. The Yankees came through, did what they had to do, and the Orioles have not been doing what they have to do. And now they're coming into Yankee Stadium, really looking bad here in the home stretch. So Yankees ought to take care of business against them. And then speaking of playing bad teams, the Yankees are finishing up against the Pirates next weekend, at the final weekend of the 2024 season, wrapping things up for games 160, 161, and 162 next weekend against Pittsburgh. And depending on where they're at as far as earning home field advantage, I mean, I'd probably just take it easy. The Yankees don't have to worry about resting guys as much as they did in years past because, I mean, they're already going to have the bye week next week. So you're already going to get the guys plenty of rest from that. So I would really just go full throttle on trying to finish with the best record possible, possibly even throughout Major League Baseball, so you could secure home field advantage all the way through. Even the World Series, if possible, if you could finish with a better record than the Phillies and the Dodgers. So that's what I would focus on doing. Those are my expectations. I wouldn't be absolutely crushed if the Yankees weren't as good as the Phillies or the Dodgers as far as home field for the World Series. Wouldn't be crushed about that, but I would love it if the Yankees went for the kill. Obviously not at the expense of anybody's health here, to getting somebody injured before the playoffs, but it would be nice to go for the kill. The Yankees don't do that all too often, usually in their approaches in years past with the playoffs right around the corner, but Boone alluded to possibly doing that this time, especially with finishing ahead of the Guardians, and it could actually happen for once. I would like for them to do that. I definitely want them to go for the kill for at least finishing with the best record in the American League. But if they don't finish with a better record than the Phillies or the Dodgers, I won't be absolutely crushed. Because one of them is not making it to the World Series. One of them or both. Only one at the most could go. So, not going to be crushed with that. At least finish with the best record in the American League. That's all I'm looking for at this point as far as expectations for the last week here. I think it's safe to say that the American League East is basically a lock. It's pretty much a lock. All the Yankees have to do is win one more game. The Orioles just have to lose one more. Take care of it right away on Tuesday if you can. If not, take care of it Wednesday or Thursday. Doesn't make a difference. And then just focus primarily on finishing ahead of Cleveland. Mostly relaxed for once, which is nice because usually with the Yankees going right up until the end, it is just crunch time. It is nerves. It is stress. But this time, it's a little bit more relaxed, but still just a couple of more expectations to hammer out. The first one being securing the AL East is right there. Second one, which you're already 2.5 games up on doing heading into Monday tomorrow, just try to finish ahead of the Guardians. That's it. And if you care, try to finish ahead of the Dodgers and the Phillies. Again, wouldn't be absolutely crushed if you don't. Those are the expectations going forward. Otherwise, guys, the fact that it is the last week, once again, I cannot believe it. I'm so ready for playoff baseball at this point. That's where my mind really is. I'm so ready for it. But speaking of how good a week it has been, and obviously when talking about the expectations for the following week and talking about what is ahead for the last week, what say you we get right into the weekly recap, discuss the in-depth details of what happened in this past week's very nice West Coast trip for the Yankees in Seattle and Oakland. Look ahead to the final week and keep this show rolling. Yapping Yankees Time Machine. Let's go.
This is where the fun begins.
Another new sound effect. We got Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith. I know a lot of you guys know I'm a huge Star Wars fan. But yeah, the fun is definitely about to begin, recapping this past week with how fun it was. All right, well, we start this really good past week of Yankees baseball with a really good start to the week in Seattle, where the Yankees had beaten the Mariners to start that 3-game set over there by a score of 11-2. I had mentioned before, Luis Gil had a pretty decent outing in this game. 5 innings of just 1-run ball, 4 hits, 3 walks. We had a little bit of a problem with the walks again. I'm telling you, if he just gets that walking issue with the control and the command straightened out, this kid's going to be a hell of a pitcher. I mean, he already is a great pitcher. He's awesome. But, yeah, he's got to get the walks and the control a bit better. But other than that, still struck out 5, and despite the amount of traffic he allowed, like I said, kept them off the board for the most part, except for just that 1 run that he allowed in the second inning when the Yankees were already up 4-0 anyway. Otherwise, the only other run allowed was from Stroman out in the bullpen with that 3-inning performance, because like I had said, the Yankees have been making use of that strategy where they take one of their starters. They did this with Nestor once, and since then they've only done it with Stroman, which I'm okay with, honestly, because Stroman, you know, is not the best second-half pitcher as we've seen, and I think it's a nice fit for him, honestly. I think it's pretty good. I'm fine with him getting less innings. So, otherwise, the offense, they primarily did their thing. Judge started things off in the top of the first with a 2-run double. This is really when he started to heat up for the most part, because even throughout when he had been slumping, and even when he wasn't hitting many home runs, if any at all, he was still getting his hits every once in a while, and this was definitely an example of that. He's still cracking the ball real hard every now and again. So a 2-run double here made it 2-0. Then a 2-run single by Judge in the top of the second made it 4-0, so it was basically 4-0 Judge at this point. Then after Gil gave up his 1 run, that's when the Yankees started to go even crazier. Soto hit his 40th of the year, his most recent one, a 2-run shot that gave the Yankees a 6-1 lead, driving Glaber home. Then Jason Dominguez in the top of the 5th, Martian landing.
Give me a hell yeah!
Hell yeah, first for the kid in 24. This is really the start of it for him. Really love to see this one. Made it 7-1, and even the thumbnail in the MLB app video for it is hilarious. Gives the Martian logo on the left and then almost a UFO beaming him down onto Earth. It's great. I love that. It's one of the coolest nicknames for a baseball player, without a doubt. And then in the top of the 6th to make it 10-1, Wells roped a 3-run double into right field, with Oswaldo capitalizing after the Mariners scored 1 run off of Stroman on a rarely solo shot. Oswaldo came out in the top of the 9th, got an RBI single to make it 11-2, which again was the final. And Stroman did earn his first save because he did pitch those last 3 innings there, so that did earn him a save. Great start to the Seattle series. Wednesday would be much quieter. Still a very nice victory ultimately, but definitely quieter. From a pitching standpoint, Nestor did a very nice job, 6 innings shutout, 4 hits, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. Canely did a nice job to start the 7th inning. Clay Holmes would finish the 7th and then make a mess of things in the 8th, which is not a surprise because that is what the man does in almost every inning he comes into, is make a mess of things. He allowed the 1 run that the Mariners scored in the night to tie the game at 1 after the Yankees had gotten on the board all the way back in the top of the 2nd on a Rizzo RBI single. So Yankees find themselves at 1-1 with the offense still dead silent, the bullpen doing their thing, Weaver pitching an inning and 2/3 scoreless, Ian Hamilton finishing it off with a scoreless inning himself and getting his first save of the year. In the top of the 10th, after things had been quiet forever, Anthony Rizzo once again, for the first time since he came through in the 2nd inning, responsible for both runs on this night, comes through again all the way later in the top of the 10th with an RBI double, scoring the ghost runner Jason Dominguez, made it 2-1 Yankees. Hamilton again held them off in the bottom of the 10th, and the Yankees were victorious by a score of 2-1, even though the Yankees only had 3 hits on the whole night, and 2 of them were RBI drives by Rizzo, the only other hit coming from Soto. The Yankees still managed to pull out the 2-1 victory, which is crazy. Very, very funny. Weaver was credited with the win as well. Wednesday, unfortunately, did not go the Yankees' way as much. The offense was, again, for the most part, quiet, but unfortunately, it was too quiet to get the job done on this day, unlike it getting the job done the day prior. Clark had a bit of a tough first inning, as did the defense, primarily Jason Dominguez out in left field, dropping that ball in the first inning. Clark's final line was 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, only 1 earned, though, 3 walks and 7 strikeouts, so not his best outing, but also not a train wreck by any means. And they also don't want to push him too far past 5, where its pitch count was already at, because, again, he's only recently returned. And the offense, they only had 6 hits on the day, and the only inning in which they were able to do anything was in the top of the 3rd when Jazz Chisholm hit a 2-run shot to make it 3-2. But the score would stay that way for the remainder of the game. Had a couple of opportunities to score, did not come through with them. So the final was that exact score that was established all the way back in the 3rd. 3-2 Mariners. Schmidt, unfortunately, despite not having a bad start per se, did get the loss because the Yankees never came back from giving up those 3 runs, never at least tied the game from there. So he took the loss, but his ERA is still just at 2.37 since he only had that 1 earned run. But nonetheless, still grabbed the series from Seattle, and this was their only loss on this West Coast trip this past week, like I had mentioned. Friday, they would move on to Oakland. This was the extra inning game that I mentioned before, and up until the extra innings where the Yankee offense finally erupted after 9 innings of mostly quiet, and I say that very nicely. The only thing they did was in the top of the 5th worth mentioning, Anthony Volpe getting an RBI single, driving in Rizzo to tie the game at 1 at the time after Cole gave up just 1 to Shea Langelier's RBI single, which was the only inning he had even remote difficulty in, because again, like I mentioned before, this was when Cole pitched a gem. 9 innings of 1-run ball, only a walk allowed and 2 little hits, striking out 7. Absolute gem for the ace, and a nice bounce back after the travesty start against the Red Sox, where it just was a bad look. Spoke all about it last week. Listen back to last week's episode, number 235, if you missed that and want to listen back to it. But otherwise, just about as good of a bounce-back start after a really bad one as you could possibly have as a pitcher, I think. Cole pulled it off in this outing. Credited with the win, but not even the complete game, despite going all 9 and still having under 100 pitches officially as of finishing the 9th, which is amazing. So economical in this outing. But the game did go into extras because it was still 1-1 with things as quiet as ever. But finally, like I mentioned before, 10th inning was an adventurous one. It was finally explosive for the Yankees. This was also the game that Soto was not in the lineup to start, because in that last game on Thursday was when he slid into that wall in Seattle and badly bruised his knee. Thank God it wasn't worse. But after a passed ball actually drove in the go-ahead run to start the top of the 10th to make it 2-1 Yankees, Soto came in for a pinch-hitting appearance. First time coming off the bench, first time playing since he bashed that knee into the wall in Seattle, and he ropes an RBI double into left field, driving home Waldo to make it 3-1. Great appearance for Soto there. Awesome coming off the bench. And a huge sigh of relief, aside from the news already itself, that his knee it wasn't in any bad shape after crashing into that wall. But an especially, even more so welcomed sigh of relief was him coming through like this in extra innings right off the bench. Volpe would follow this with an RBI single of his own, driving John Birdie home, who was pinch running for Soto, obviously. That made it 4-1, and you felt like it was comfortable enough for the Yankees to get the job done, and it was. Weaver came in, only allowed that ghost runner to score. Who the hell even cares? Yankees win 4-2, and Luke Weaver, once again, looked really solid, striking out all three batters he faced, only allowing that one hit and driving home that ghost runner, an unearned run, as Bro continues to be just an unbelievable closer. He seems to be the established closer the last couple of weeks, I think it's safe to say. Earning his third save, Cole getting his 7th win of the year. Yanks win 4-2 and 10. Then yesterday, well, it was just a blowout. Rodon, 6 shutout innings, only allowing 5 hits and just 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Definitely time for the bullpen to rest some of its top arms once again, with the Yankees having the massive lead they had. Good opportunity to get some of the mop-up guys in there. Mark Leiter Jr. pitched 2 shutout innings. Very nice job for him. Had the splitter going. That's really the key for him. If he has the splitter going, he'll be solid. If he doesn't, he's going to get absolutely wrecked. Then Meza came in, finished off the 9th inning very efficiently, but the offense was the main story. The first one was driven in on a double play ball by Stanton. Then after this is when they went nuts. Jason Dominguez, RBI single. Anthony Volpe, solo shot, a bomb to left center. Giancarlo Stanton, the mammoth 3-run shot that I had mentioned before. Aaron Judge with his 54th home run. Solo shot to lead off the 7th, made it 7-0. Volpe, grounding into a force out, drove in an 8th run, Stanton to be specific. Leadoff Glaber doing it again. 2-run single. It did help things along having Butler in right field getting an error, but nonetheless, 2-run single, error by Butler allowed Glaber to advance to second. All good. 10-0 was your final. I was almost convinced before this game started that the Yankees were going to have a rough one because they were facing J.P. Sears, who's not only a former Yankee, and the Yankees usually don't do well against their former teammates, but also because Sears is a lefty. And we all know the difficulties the Yankee offense has had against lefties this year, but they managed to have themselves a stellar game. Honestly, 10-0. Going for the sweep today, they would obviously pull it off, as we all saw. Heel definitely struggled. Wasn't a train wreck of a start, but wasn't a great one either. 5 1/3, 5 hits, 4 runs. Again, 2 of those were his responsibility, but scored with Hamilton on the mound. 3 walks and 5 strikeouts. So again, the 3 walks, like his prior outing, the walks is his primary problem. But since even with those 2 runs that were his responsibility scoring off of Hamilton, even with those scoring, the Yankees were still winning and had 5 runs on the board by then, so it wasn't enough to at least tie. And other than that, no other runs scored for the A's. So Heel was still credited with the win. Like I said before, his 15th of the year in his continued Rookie of the Year campaign push. So that's 15-6 with an ERA of 3.27. And as of today, he has 146 innings on his season. So with the next outing, I would say unless it's a train wreck, he's probably going to make it over 150 innings pitched, which is solid. He'll probably have over 170 strikeouts. An ERA somewhere in the 320s most likely, and he might earn his 16th win. I mean, next time he's out there, it'll be against the Pirates. If he does do that, it's going to be tough not to give him the Rookie of the Year, man. With a 16-6 record as a pitcher, making 29 starts it'll be his next time out, with an ERA in the 320s and innings pitched over 150, over 170 strikeouts. A very nice campaign, man. Very nice. But, yeah, could have been better today. Could have been worse, I guess. The bullpen brought it home very nicely after that. Hamilton did allow the 2 runs that were charged to Heel. But otherwise, we all know how phenomenal Hamilton has still looked. Tim Hill, still looking fantastic. Clay Holmes allowed a hit and a walk right away when he came in. Got a strikeout, but then after the batter minimum of 3, Boone hooked him right out, which I loved. Then Weaver got the last 5 outs. So nice job there. And the offense did have to dig themselves out of a little bit of an early hole because those 2 of those runs that Heel allowed, well, These were the only two that he allowed actually on the mound himself, were in the first inning. Obviously, the next two would be with Hamilton on the mound, but his responsibility. But because of that first inning damage that he allowed without the Yankees having scored in the top of the first, the Yankees did have to dig themselves out of a hole. Thankfully, they did it almost instantly. Well, actually instantly in the top of the second, right after the bottom of the first, because Jason Dominguez steps up to the plate with Jazz Chisholm having reached base with a hit, and the Martian sends one right into the right field seats, 2-run game-tying shot, his second of 2024, making it 2-2 as he continues to look better and better at the plate, as I had mentioned before. Welcome stuff by Jason. That's what I want to keep seeing. Top of the third. Not quite sure why my audio is sounding like this today, but it's all good. I'll try to figure that out. But nonetheless, figured because it's another big home run, put the Yankees in the lead, and, well, it's the captain. Figured I'd just get a nice clip of this. Why not? The captain did this with the game tied at 2 for the 55th time this year.
High fly ball, center field and deep. Leday back, on the track, at the wall. See ya! A home run to dead center. 55, and the Yankees lead 3-2.
Damn straight, Cap. Number 99 with number 55.
Holy crap!
Holy crap is right, Frank Barone. Audio and courtesy of the S Network as well. Again, I'm not sure why my audio clips are sounding like that today, but I'll try to get that figured out. Nonetheless, that gave the Yankees a 3-2 lead, that mammoth shot to center field. Top of the fifth, leadoff Glaber. This was the clip that I played for you earlier on in the show. Number 15 for him, solo shot to dead center like the Cat before him. Made it 4-2. Jazz Chisholm, sac fly after that to make it 5-2. A's inched a little bit closer off of Hamilton to make it 5-4, but then the Yankees took off with a couple more runs of their own after that to get those right back. Giancarlo Stanton, RBI double into the right center field gap, like I'd mentioned earlier, made it 6-4. And then, like I had also mentioned earlier, Wellesley, Austin Wells, RBI double to left field, made it 7-4. And that was your final, folks. Yankees complete the sweep in Oakland, as I said, 5-1 road trip heading into the off day into the final week. It's what you love. What's ahead for the rest of the week, the final week of the 2024 season? The Yankees are off tomorrow on Monday the 23rd. Then they start their second to last series. They come back home to finish off at Yankee Stadium against the Orioles. And this series, like I said, has a lot less pressure around it than it did before. The main thing about it will probably be that there's a lot of celebrating once they officially clinch the AL East. That's probably the overall mindset coming into this at this point, instead of a knockdown, drag-out brawl with this series deciding who wins the division. Mathematically, it'll decide it. But psychologically, I think we all already know that it's virtually a lock at this point. But nonetheless, that'll basically be what the deal is for this series. Tuesday, 7:05 p.m. Eastern will be the start time. Clark Schmidt will be on the mound once again, looking to bounce back a bit from that Mariners outing. He'll be facing Dean Kramer. 7:05 Eastern on Tuesday the 24th. Wednesday, this game will actually not be on Amazon Prime Video like Wednesdays usually are. Keep that in mind, folks. This game will be on the Yes Network, which I'm glad to hear about. I hate when the games are on streaming. But it'll be on the Yes Network, 7:05 p.m. Eastern once again. Nestor will be taking the hill against Zach Eflin. And then on Thursday at the stadium, it'll also be another 7:05 p.m. Eastern start on the Yes Network with the ace, Garrett Cole, taking the hill against Corbin Burns. At this point, I already expect the AL East to be on even mathematical lock, but still, a nice matchup. Would have been sick if this series had the meaning that we all anticipated it to have, but nonetheless, still an exciting matchup to witness. And who knows, maybe one day we'll get in the playoffs in the near future. We shall see. Then Friday begins the last series of the season. At the Bronx, the Yankees will welcome the Pittsburgh Pirates. No pitching announcements have been made for this series, but Friday will be at 7:05 p.m. Eastern. Saturday, the 28th, will be at 1:05 p.m. Eastern. And then Sunday, the 29th, for Game 162 in 2024. Like it usually always is on the last day of the year. Every single team that day will have a start time at some point in the early or mid 3 o'clock hour. The Yankees will be at 3:05 Eastern. That'll be when we yap again, guys, and that'll also be the end of the season with the wild card round starting Shortly after that, on Tuesday, October 1st, I know I keep saying it, but I can't believe it. But I am also very excited because I'm ready for the playoffs at this point. I'm so ready to go. But that's what's ahead, guys. Already spoke about the expectations for the final week, what there is to look forward to. All there is left to do is see how it goes, right? So that's it for the weekly recap segment. Last things to do are Yankees news for this past week, and obviously just the social media segment to wrap things up today. Yankees news, a little bit short again this week, but still a couple of things worth mentioning. We obviously briefly mentioned Soto with the knee earlier on in the show, both in the show open and in weekly recap primarily. But the main things when it comes to Soto is just that he, again, bruised his knee after sliding into the wall down the line in right field. He had felt a lot of pain initially and was really slow to get up. The whole team surrounded him. Everybody was holding their breath. But shortly after that, there was a lot of optimism, saying that the pain was really subsiding. Got some precautionary tests done. They came up fine. He has looked and been fine since. And all seems to be well. Thank God. That's mainly the latest thing for him. And then outside of just a couple of things in general for the remainder of the injured list, there's just one little thing from this past week. On Thursday, the 19th, it was announced that Jake Cousins out in the bullpen, and you don't like to really hear this because he was one of those names that was a part of that group in the back end of the bullpen that I had said, and many other people have said, we really like how the Yankees have formed that nice unit back there. Jake Cousins was a part of that, and could still be, but a little unsettling to hear about this. It was announced that he was dealing with some pec tightness, and his velocity was a little down in his prior couple of outings that some people had noticed. And when asked about this, they had said this was actually something that he had been managing this past week, but midweek he started to feel a lot better, according to him. But just to be extra cautious, they did officially put him on the injured list just today, and he's also being examined by Dr. Ahmad. Obviously, don't have a problem with that. There's nothing to have a problem with. You want to be as cautious as possible with the playoffs right around the corner with a guy that you consider to be a big part of your bullpen. But they're hoping that they could actually have him throw again at some point this week already, so he could still be considered for the playoffs. But we'll see what happens there. Only time will tell, but hoping for the best with Jake Cousins. We'll see how he progresses this coming week. And it was a relief to hear that they're really painting this in the light of just being very precautionary. But called up for him in the meantime, since he was officially IL'd, retroactive to the 20th, is actually Clayton Beeter.
Holy crap!
Yeah, I think another holy crap is warranted there, Frank Barone, because I know this may be surprising because we were all under the impression that we weren't seeing Beeter for the rest of the year after he hurt his shoulder months ago. So yeah, definitely unexpected there, but he really quietly, under the radar, turns out that he was actually reactivated within just the last couple of weeks in the minors. And in the 4 scoreless innings he's thrown down there since being reactivated, he's actually looked really good. Really good. So, for the first time since the first series of the season in Houston, Beeter is back in the bigs. Pretty wild there, honestly. If you remember, he just had thrown 3 little pitches in that 1 inning worth of work in the second game of the year. That's it, so... And then he was in the minors for a while after they optioned him again after that, and then he got hurt with his shoulder for months. Thought we weren't going to see him again in 24. But nonetheless, now he's back at the very end here, and the Yankees are calling him up again in the meantime in place of Jake Cousins for now. This ought to be very interesting. I'm happy about this. Looking forward to see what he has. I was saying for a long time up until he got hurt, why isn't he back in the big leagues? I want to see him get more looks in the bullpen. So we'll see what happens with Beeter. Really welcome news and unexpected news with this. Speaking of Star Wars, as Palpatine says in the first episode, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. That definitely fits here. So, only other news in particular was on Friday the 20th, the Yankees had finally officially returned Cody Poteet from the 60-day injured list and optioned him back to AAA. So, for depth reasons, if they ever need him, he is there and he's finally ready to go. So that's very good to know. Another big reactivation. And the Yankees, in turn, to open up that 40-man spot for him, actually DFA'd Ron Marinaccio. I didn't expect that. I mean, there are a couple arms in this very bullpen that you could afford to DFA right now. I did not think Ron Marinaccio was one of them. The guy has done a very nice job in the minors this year with an ERA in the low twos this year down there. And when the Yankees have called upon him, he's been a little bit all over the place. Sometimes he's had his good appearances at times, then he'll come up and not be so great. So he's been a little bit all over the place as far as the majors. But overall this year, especially considering his performances in the minors, I would say that he was taking some steps forward compared to last year, for instance. So I'm just kind of surprised that they just DFA'd him. That was a surprise to me. I thought you could DFA Meza or even Mark Leiter Jr., God forbid, over him. But of course, God forbid you DFA Mark Leiter Jr. God forbid the final of the only 2 pitching acquisitions that Cashman made at this year's deadline. God forbid both of them be DFA'd at the end of the day. But nonetheless, Marinaccio was DFA'd. I did not see that one coming. There's no official news with him as of yet if he has been picked up by anybody or if he's just going to end up maybe electing free agency or just getting outrighted back to AAA and being off the 40-man but still being within the organization. I assume we're going to be hearing that in the coming days, but that's what they did in turn for reactivating Cody Poteet and re-adding him to the 40-man. Other than that, with the remainder of the bullpen, along with the Cousins, IL, and Beater call-up news, and with Poteet and Marinaccio and whatnot, it was also announced that Lou Trevino, who had been rehabbing for weeks as a further piece for potential bullpen reinforcements, we've been talking about him for weeks, well, that's done. He's dealing with some new shoulder issues now, they're saying, so he's done for the year. So we still have not seen him since after the Yanks traded for him in 2022 at the trade deadline in that Montas trade. And he'd been solid for them in the second half of that year after being acquired. Definitely the better part of the Montas trade for sure. But since then, haven't seen him at all. And for the most part, it has been crickets on his end. Up until recently was when he was finally rehabbing again, being talked about as being potential bullpen reinforcements. Now, we're going to have to wait until at least 2025. It's just one thing after the other with him. You just hope that he can rest properly this winter, I guess, build up right as spring approaches, and be fresh for 25. I mean, that is if the Yanks even choose to exercise the club option on his contract right now. He does have that, so they'll have to make a decision on that if they even care to bring him back, if they like possibly what they saw in his latest rehab and think that he could help next year. But that'll be an off-season decision and discussion. But for now, that's the deal with Lou Trevino. More disappointing news with him. Otherwise, you still got DJ on the injured list with that apparent hip impingement. Johnny Lowe's done for the year, obviously. Pereira's done still. We know this. And I wouldn't hold my breath or even care much for Brubaker, who's still rehabbing, currently at AAA. Even if he does come back, I don't really see him making much of an impact, especially on a postseason roster. I wouldn't even put him on it. So that's really it as far as the injured list, the remainder of what's left of it, guys, and any official roster transactions that took place this past week. Social media segment time. I do have to say that of all of the open-ended questions I've asked for the social media segment, this one probably lies a little bit on the easier side to answer, but this was asked before today's game officially, because now, especially after today, the division really does seem to be on a virtual just lock. It still did a little bit before today started, but before knowing the outcome of today's Tigers and Orioles game, which obviously the Tigers again would win, and before knowing the Yankees and A's game, which of course the Yankees would win, it was a little bit more up in the air, a tad bit more. And that's when I had asked this question. Probably seems a little bit sillier if you're listening to this after the fact, which obviously you are, knowing how it is after the outcome of both of those games today here on Sunday. But a little bit more of a thought process after last night coming into today here on Sunday. And anything was possible, obviously, with the Orioles coming to town on Tuesday, but obviously with the even further separation today, you know the deal. The open-ended question, quite simply, for this week was that coming into today's game, the Yanks are 5 games up on the O's with 7 games to play, magic number down to 3. That was the deal before today's games. Are you confident in saying the division belongs to the Yanks at this point? So basically, do you think it is definitively theirs? Do you even remotely consider the Orioles a threat, even if the magic number was still up to 3 before today's action? What are your thoughts? I say for myself that even before action started today that I did think the Yankees had it on a lock And today even further supported that, making the magic number 1 with the Orioles losing again and the Yankees winning again. But even before action today, I did think this, because the whole entire time I was thinking, if the Yankees went into the Orioles series up by 4 games, I would still feel pretty good, because I do think the Yankees are going to at least beat them 2 out of 3, particularly because of how much they're struggling, the Orioles. And that would definitely put a nail in the coffin at that point regardless. So I was already confident, and even if they did lose 2 out of 3, then you're talking about the Yankees still having a 3-game lead coming out of the Orioles series, and just the Orioles having to lose merely 1 game or the Yankees merely having to win 1 game going into the final weekend. And I like the Yankees' odds very much even in that case. So especially even 5 games in, let's say the Yankees lost today and it stayed at 5 games over with the magic number being 2, I would still feel really confident. And that was obviously the worst case scenario with the Orioles having already lost. But if the Orioles won today and the Yankees had lost and it had gone down to 4 games, that was the instance that I would have mentioned before, still would have been fine with that. Especially now with the instance that played out, with the Yankees being 6 over with 6 left to play, making the magic number 1, it's done. So even, like I said, even if it was 4 up going into the Orioles series, I was still fine with that, and that was the worst possible case scenario. So my answer to this was absolutely yes, it's locked. Let's quickly hear what some of you guys had to say before action commenced today with any of the baseball games here on Sunday. Let's start with @Crusaders BBNY saying the division is theirs to lose. The Orioles would need to sweep them and hope they don't play well against Pittsburgh. But Baltimore has to play Minnesota after, so the division should be a lock. Hopefully. Yeah, definitely, I agree, especially after action today, for sure. @Lee_W18 says not over until it's over. It's a wise answer. It's a wise answer. I'm going a little bit out on the edge, at least as of before action today. But, yeah, I would still say it was over. But I don't blame anybody for waiting until it is mathematically decided. @Cashman Sucks NYY says, I'll be much more comfortable if Detroit wins today and the Yankees sweep today to knock the magic number down to 1. Fair enough, and as we know, that is ultimately what did happen. So there you go. @Frank Oliveri says, 8 out of 10 confident. All right, so I would say that's very confident. @Javien114 says, if the Yanks win today, then yes. So it is yes for you. They did win today. @BWelch1943 says, Yanks have the division. Cleveland is beginning to fold its tents for the league lead. Houston will provide a playoff challenge. Yeah, I would say the Yankees have the division, and it's looking like the Yankees might stay over Cleveland through to the end here for the best record in the American League. Houston providing a playoff challenge? Maybe. I would say it's probably the worst they've been since the 2017 run began, and plus I heard that Alvarez had gotten hurt today, so that would be a huge blow. So I don't know, we'll see. But interesting thoughts there. We'll see what ends up taking place. @Laura_Icemont, my buddy Laura, who I saw last weekend on her birthday just passed. Happy belated, Laura. Laura says, yes, I'm comfortable that the Yankees will win the division. If you asked me last month, I'd say I was very unsure. Given that the Orioles haven't played well, it helped the Yankees a lot. You know, that definitely did, but the difference of the last 2 weeks with the Orioles downward spiraling even more and the Yankees trending in the opposite direction and getting it done when they had to in the last couple of weeks, that's definitely made a difference as well. But the Orioles staying down, that it has especially definitely made a difference for the last handful of months, I would say, because that's been going on for a while now. Yankees and the Orioles not playing great baseball before just the last couple of weeks with the Yankees. @RankDog23 says, it's very improbable for the Orioles to win the division. Yeah, it definitely is. Definitely, especially as of now after today. @TommyVArt says, I think we're okay. I think so too, my guy. Spencer @MusicianDMD, my good buddy Spence, hope you're doing well, brother. Thank you, as always, so much for replying, even amidst everything you're going through. I hope you and the family are doing okay. Spencer says, the Yankees are like a marathon runner in the final mile of the race. They can see the end. They're getting strong at the right time. Everything is falling into place for them. They'll clinch the division on Tuesday night. 2024 feels like their year. It really does. I hope so, man. I hope so. Before this year started, I said the Yankees could win first place. I wasn't sure if they were going to. I thought the Orioles may very well finish over them again. I'm looking to be gladly wrong about that. I did say if they do end up going to the the playoffs, that they might go far, but they're not going to make the World Series again. I hope to be wrong about that as well. I did expect them to have a far better season than they did last year, and that already is very true about this year. They're already 9 games better than how they finished last year. So, I mean, I think that was pretty easy to predict. It was hard to imagine things getting as bad as they got last year for a second year in a row. But, I mean, we'll see what happens when it comes to it being their year overall. I sure hope you're right about that, obviously. I do think it's probably their best team that they're going into the playoffs with as of now, since probably 2019, I would say, 2017 or 2019. So they definitely have that on their side. I'm excited about it from that perspective, I will admit that much. And I hope they go as far as they possibly can, man. I do think that they are the best team in the American League, definitively. I do. So it's very good as far as breaking their pennant drought, at least. But as far as winning a World Series, I don't know. We'll see. Next, we have at CPizzaIA saying, yes, the Yankees are playing as well as they have all season, and the Orioles are falling apart and playing their worst that they have all season. All the injuries to an already thin pitching staff has caught up to them. Absolutely, it has. Their pitching has not been great, but also their offense has been really down for some time now. We've spoken about they haven't hit as much as they were expected to either of late. But yeah, the Yankees have definitely been playing some of their best baseball once again in September here in the home stretch, heading towards the playoffs, which is absolutely what you want. They have won 5 series in a row, as I said before, after this A's series is done, after completing this sweep, but even after just Saturday night's victory yesterday, winning their 5th series in a row. They haven't had this kind of consecutive series success in months, since they won every single series for over a month, all the way from the end of April into the beginning of June, before their downturn of play started. So, yeah, definitely amongst their best baseball, even if the offense does concern you still some days, but it's been good. It's been good. At Police TJ says 2 wins to go with 1 versus the O's. If we can't do that with 7 to go, we don't deserve the division. Yeah, if they blew it even coming into action today, let alone after action today, they definitely don't deserve it. No doubt there. At Mike B_923 says, it's theirs to lose. Even if the Yankees lost today and the Orioles win, and if the Yankees somehow get swept by the Orioles in their upcoming series, the Yankees would still control their own destiny. The battle I'm looking forward to the most is the number 1 seed with Cleveland. Yeah, just like a few replies ago saying it's theirs to lose for sure. I totally agree with that. And yeah, the number 1 seed with Cleveland, I would say that's the main priority. Like I said before, I definitely agree. At Sean Shalinsky says, yes. I'm inclined to agree. At 7 Trivia says, yes, math is heavily in our favor. Yeah, especially after today. After that, we got at VJR Lombardi saying, it's over. Agreed. Rebecca at Peace Now for Life saying, absolutely. The AL East Championship will go to the Yankees. Can't wait to see the celebration. Yeah, they definitely had a big celebration when they had clinched a playoff berth this past week, but it ought to be even more when they clinch the division once again. It'll be the first time since 22 for that, obviously. At Michael Eddie 6 says, anticipating a win today, which drops magic number to 2. Actually did to 1 since the Orioles lost. And next 3 versus Orioles at the stadium, so 1 win and 3 clinches the deal. Yeah, the Yankees win the AL East and get 5 days off before they begin the playoffs. Yeah, that bye week's going to be something. I hope it doesn't cool them off like it has tended to do with some other teams in the past, but it is a big deal. It's nice to have there in your back pocket. At Anthony Scarabin says, 100% it's done. Fair enough. At KY_Fee says, hell no, don't put that bad juju into the universe. I mean, it would have to be generational bad juju to blow at this point, my man. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that too much. If it does screw them over, then if they happen to blow this, and I'll take full responsibility for it gladly. All right. Let us finish off the usual final 2 here. Got my girlfriend at Vic Salimo. And Vic says, yeah, definitely. They just need to not go on a 6-game losing streak. Yeah, I know. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And the Orioles have to not even just lose even 1 game. Oh, my goodness. Last but not least is my mom at Julia Gina Scudero, and she says, yes, I totally believe that the Yankees will clinch the division. Wish they'd play Trent Grisham more. Seriously, though, praying we finally win number 28 already. Let's go, Yankees. Yeah, for those who don't understand, Yeah, as I've said, there are definitely certain aspects about Trent Grisham that I actually like, but there is a running joke in this family that we are just huge Trent Grisham fans because my brother, who is a notorious and generational Met hater, he watched Trent Grisham single-handedly almost take down the Mets in the wild card round for the Padres in 2022, and ever since then, he has just loved Trent, and then he bugged out. I might have mentioned this in the past, but he bugged out when the Padres and Yankees trade was announced when it brought Soto and Trent over here. He was so happy about it. So it's just become like a running joke in this house. He actually does like Trent decently. He acknowledges his many shortcomings, obviously, but big Trent Grisham stan, my brother. Somewhat jokingly, somewhat seriously. So just a bit of a running joke in this house. So it's pretty funny, honestly. Just for those who don't quite understand that, but funny comment nonetheless, Mom. And yeah, winning number 28, yeah, obviously goes without saying. So a little bit of a softball, open-ended question for today, but why not amidst already being in a good mood? Why the hell not for this week's episode 236, which is just about done for now, guys. I thank you guys so much for listening, as always, contributing to the social media segment, making it this far into the show. If you have, means the world to me, my friends. What would also mean the world to me is if you went on to follow me on all social medias, if you don't already, that is. My Facebook fan page is Mike Scudero NY. At Twitter or X, follow me at Mike Scudero. And my Instagram is Mike Scuds97. Also subscribe to Yapping Yankees on all 4 of the platforms it is available on if you haven't already. That is YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Like, subscribe, comment wherever you may be listening to show your love. And if you have the time and have missed any past Yapping Yankees episodes, do not worry. You can hear episodes 34 all the way up to 236 today on YouTube, and every single Yapping Yankees episode that ever was, including today's, going all the way back to episode 1, almost 5.5 years ago. Those are all available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. But once again, my friends, I thank you 3,000 for listening to me yap today. I have been your host, Mike Scudero, and we shall yap again next Sunday, September 29th, after the completion of the 162nd and final game of the 2024 season, when I come at you with episode 237 of Yapping Yankees. But until then, my friends, as always, hang in there, be patient, please stay safe, look out for your loved ones. As I also always encourage you to do, please go on ahead and kick life's ass this week, my good people. And same to the Yankees, I suppose, within the last week here. Let's clean this division up real quick with a nice victory on Tuesday. If not, then Wednesday, just get it done at some point. Let's finish atop the American League and possibly even atop Major League Baseball, which would be super nice. But either way, we'll see how everything finishes off once all is said and done after Game 162, once we yap again for the last time during the regular season, at least, of 2024, next Sunday the 29th. Until then, take care, and let's go soon-to-be 2024 AL East champions, Yanks.